Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. I'm your host, Yvonne Contreras, Assistant Director, Curriculum and Instructional Services at the Los Angeles County Office of Education. I want to welcome you to the second in a series of webcasts sponsored by the Division of Curriculum and Instructional Services and LACO for district leaders. The District Leaders Collaborative is designed to support district leadership in the transition and implementation of Common Core state standards and next generation assessments. 3 webinars will present topics of particular interest to district leadership and will focus on promising practices to implement Common Core in Los Angeles County districts. In our last webcast, we looked at 3 districts in LA County and their approach for implementing Common Core state standards in mathematics and language arts. Another district shared their approach with students with moderate to severe disabilities with speaking and listening strand. Our webcast today will feature the Norwalk-La Mirada Unified School District. Their presentation today is Collaborating for Success with the Common Core. Outcomes for the hour include describing their Common Core Smarter Balanced Implementation Plan, ways to build capacity of the various stakeholders, strategies for training, support and buy-in, and strategies for smarter balance preparation. Today we welcome to the desk the team from Norwalk-La Mirada Unified School District. I would like to introduce Dr. Lila Bronson, Assistant Superintendent, Educational Services.
Pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Shannon Baker, Director, Curriculum, Assessment, and Evaluation.
Thank you for having us today.
Thank you. And Dr. Al Clegg, Director, Curriculum and K-12 Education.
Thank you, Yvonne, for having us today.
Well, welcome to all of you. Lila, can you begin by giving us an overview of the district and a performance snapshot?
Absolutely. Our district is Norwalk-La Mirada Unified. It's a TK through 12 school district with 27 schools. Our enrollment is 19,240 students. We have 80% free and reduced lunch, 15.9% English learners, 0.2% American Indian, 2.4% African American, 6.4% Asian, 79.1% Hispanic, 1.5% multi-ethnic, 0.5% Pacific Islanders, 9.9% white, and 11.4% students with disabilities.
Thank you. Can you share with our audience your district focus and how the district began to build the capacity with all stakeholder groups?
Yes. Our district focus is about having professional learning communities to support all of the work we do. This takes time to build, but it's the foundation of our Common Core and SBAC implementation plans, as well as our response to intervention plan. We have some key strategies that we're implementing across our district that reflects these foci. One is to make sure that professional learning communities are embedded in everything that we do. We also use data to inform our decisions. We focus on collaborative implementation of Common Core with all of our leaders at the site and district level, as well as looking at academic and behavioral interventions with frequent progress monitoring for the students who need it. We also look at making sure that the quality of instruction in every classroom is rigorous and really has teaching and learning going on all the time for students. That happens by building the capacity of your teachers and your administrators and the parents to be continuously improving. We also have certain guiding principles that we're using to implement our Common Core, aligning standards and curriculum, designing standards and lessons for rigor and relevance, personalizing learning through the use of technology, creating dynamic learning environments, and developing leadership capacity and professional learning communities. Some of the Common Core instructional shifts and implementation expectations, or what we call our key strategies, are to make sure that we implement close reading in all English language arts, science, and social studies classrooms. We also want to develop students' opinion and argument writing skills in English language arts, science, and social studies, because literacy is a big part of the Common Core implementation. We are also looking at our English language development and how to focus on building students' academic vocabulary and making sure that our staff understands the newly adopted ELD standards. In math, we use a key strategy called Launch, Explore, Summarize, and that is modeled in all of our math classrooms. We also want to develop our students' perseverance and problem-solving skills in mathematics, which is mathematical practice number 1. And thirdly, we want to make sure that students are able to construct viable arguments and critique the reasoning of others, which is mathematical practice number 3. We will be focusing on the other mathematical practices, but for this year we thought that was very important. The framework that we use for helping us to get people to work together and to collaborate is based on Margaret Weekly's 6-circle model. This actually is part of the training that Steve Zweibeck has done with us, and I reference it on the bottom of the slide. The 6-circle model basically says that there are things that we do in our organization that are about patterns and structures and process. These are the rules. This is what we call the work. But then there's the part of the understanding of what that work is that's based on people and how people work together and how they understand that work and whether they have enough information in order to be able to do that work effectively. So it's not just understanding the expectations or the what, it's understanding how and really the why. And that's where the identity of the work or the moral imperative is more than just a compliance matter. It's a matter of getting everyone to really truly buy in. In our implementation plan, we have developed it in stages. The first stage, really we started in 2012-13, and that was really to develop awareness of what are the standards, what is our implementation plan, how are different teams of stakeholders involved in developing that work, the development of the wireless infrastructure and technology upgrades. We developed professional development modules for principals so that they could teach those to their teachers. And we also started writing units of study to be used for this year, 2014-15. There was a transition in the summer of 2013-14, and that's when we had Common Core coaches and our Common Core teams working together to understand the new units of study that were developed and to pilot some of the materials in math and in language arts that are helping us to implement the key strategies. We also needed to train parents, and that is all of what we're doing this year. Next year, we're talking about an extensive implementation. It felt like it was extensive this year.
It's very extensive. It's going to more extensive.
Exactly. But next year, we'll actually have our new math materials. We're going to be doing integrated math. You'll hear more about that later. But that's a big shift for our high schools in particular. And our ELA classrooms are going to be using the Common Core units and really focusing on evidence-based writing. We'll have some data, we hope, in terms of our own internal data about how the implementation of our SBAC goes. And we're hoping that the interim assessments will be available so that we can start informing our stakeholders and our teachers and our parents about what the new SBAC assessments will be like and how it informs our work. And finally, full implementation. Honestly, I think this is going to take more than 3 or 4 years. We're calling it 2015-16 because we feel like we have to have an aggressive timeline to meet the state's timeline. But in fact, it's going to take many years, I think, to get everybody feeling very comfortable with the full implementation of the SBAC, the new ELA standards, math materials, ELD standards, the next generation science standards, and of course the SBAC assessments. This is an example of the stakeholder groups that we have formed in order to develop our plan and to continue to monitor the ongoing implementation. We have what's called the District Site Leadership Team that was formed when we became a Program Improvement District, and the Common Core Implementation Team. This year we merged those two because we feel like this is the very important work that everybody needs to be doing. We also have a secondary action team. We identified certain reforms that needed to be in place, and so our secondary action team really helps to support us in making sure that the secondary students, parents, staff, administrators all understand ways to support the work being implemented, because it's a lot of change for all levels. We also have action teams. We have an RTI special ed action team, a technology action team, an ELL action team, and a data action team. All of those teams help us to develop certain work, whether it's our RTI pyramid with RTI interventions with behavior and academics, or the technology action team is looking at what technology skills are part of the Common Core standards. The ELL action team is looking at the implementation of ELD standards and materials that are needed for that. And the data action team is looking at the development of a report card and also parameters around our benchmark assessments. We also have Common Core curriculum teams that are informing our work in a deeper way. These teams all include stakeholders that are teachers, administrators, parents, and other classified staff. The ELA action team is looking at the Common Core standards and the materials we're using and the units of study. The social studies action team is looking at how to support the literacy standards in the social studies work. The math action team is looking at the math standards as well as the new materials. The EL action team is looking at ELD and the ELD standards implementation. And the science action team and Career Tech Ed are looking at ways to make not only the next generation standards, but the Common Core standards and the linked learning pathway that we're implementing integrated with all the rest of the work.
Thank you for giving us that great overview. Shannon, the district's implementation plan is very robust and can assist other schools and districts as they continue to roll out the transition to Common Core state standards and Smarter Balance assessments. Can you review with our audience the plan that Norwalk-La Mirada has implemented?
I would be glad to. I'm going to talk to you today about 5 goals that we had when we started this plan. This was the summer right before we started the 2012-2013 school year. And we thought, okay, we need to have some goals that are going to take us to the next few years. So we came up with 5 of them. And so I'm going to go in depth with those 5 as we go forward.
Great, thank you.
The first one is making sure that all of our stakeholders have the appropriate information. Lila said we have 27 schools who sometimes all hear different things. So we want to make sure that that doesn't happen, especially with Common Core. We wanted to make sure teachers have support. So I'll talk to you a little bit about how we changed our coaching model to make sure that we had support at the site level. We'll also talk about site level teams, which I think has been one of the most powerful things we've done this year, and making sure that we have professional development for our site administrators. And I'll talk to you a little bit about an embedded professional development model called Lesson Study that we've been working on for the last 2 years. Okay. Our first goal was actually the 2012-2013 school year is the year we talked about making sure that everyone had the right information. They understood the shifts. They knew what the standards were. They could have conversations about them. They could do some crosswalks between what we are working, the California standards and the Common Core standards. So the first thing we needed to do was get input. So we decided to create district level teams. Lila shared that with you. We had an application process where we asked interested teachers and administrators to serve on the content teams that they felt matched their expertise the best. And we had the union involved in selecting team members. We wanted to make sure that they had some input in who was there so that they could make sure that they were delivering messages to their members in the appropriate way. And so those teams have been in place now for 2 years, and they have really helped guide our work in determining what kind of professional development our teachers and our sites need. In addition, during that year, we created professional development modules, which my team created and then presented to the principals at principal meetings, where they received the module and all the materials so they could go back and do the same professional development with their teachers. That was one really important thing, to make sure that all teachers were getting the same PD, especially in this awareness phase when we're all sort of learning it at the same time. The last part of and here are the different topics that we covered during that year. We talked about the depth of knowledge. We talked a lot about the standards. We did crosswalks, as I mentioned before. And we started thinking about our planning for our Summer Institute, which I'll talk about in a future slide, and also materials and units of study, getting materials into teachers' hands. After that year, we began thinking about how to support teachers in implementation, and that's where we move into Common Core Goal 2. Our previous coaching model was we had site coaches who worked, maybe they split 2 sites or they were at 1 site, and we decided that we needed more help at the district level to make sure that everyone was getting the same information. So we pulled a group of coaches to the site level, and they have really become our professional development and curriculum department. They are amazing people, and they have focuses. We have literacy and math coaches. We also have intervention teachers on special assignment who help with our RTI piece of our pyramid that Lila showed you earlier. Some of the things that they do, they provide professional development. They've been great resources in curriculum revision, gathering materials, sharing things with teachers. They've been doing demonstration lessons, and they've been assisting with intervention programs at the site level. So they are busy people, and they're doing a great job. We're lucky to have them here. Our third goal was really making sure that we had teams of teachers that were building capacity. The coaches left the site, so there was a leadership sort of gap there. So we wanted to build that into the teachers that we have on site. So this slide here that we're looking at has all of the different people that are on the Common Core site teams. We have leads. So teachers have stepped up to become a leader in the content area at their school. The teams meet on a monthly basis, and they take back information from training that they receive, and they are able to help the principal decide how to roll out professional development at the site. And they actually are taking on some of that professional development as well. So they're kind of getting stronger as we go along in their knowledge base and getting stronger in feeling comfortable as leaders at their site. So we had a summer institute where we brought in all the site teams. I think we had 164 teachers. I know. It was so we had a 4-day institute where we brought in all the teams. We did the initial training. They got to talk with each other, and they spent that whole 4th day of the Summer Institute last summer coming up with their plan. How are we going to do this? What do we need to do first? And that's what's been rolling out this year. So in addition to the Summer Institute, we also have been bringing the leads in for 4 days of training, and they also are able to roll that out at their sites as well. And making sure when we roll new curriculum out, we're also making sure that they have time to collaborate and plan together as well. The 5th goal is one of the professional development models that we began last year. It's called Lesson Study. We decided to move away from some of the sit and get professional development where we bring the teachers in, we sit them there for the day, and then they go back to site and hopefully they did what we wanted them to, they took back what we wanted them to take back with them. Lesson Study is a different model. It's a way for teachers in grade level teams to sit together, look at data, plan a lesson together, go into the classroom, teach that lesson. One teacher will teach the lesson, and it's randomly drawn out of a hat. And it's become a way for teachers to take ownership of a lesson. It's not about looking at the teacher, because the other teachers in the group then collect data on the students, and then they all come back and debrief it and decide what we do great in our planning, what do we need to do better, and then they can all go back in and reteach that lesson. So we're learning about best practices in lessons. All right, so some of the training that we've been doing this year is we've instituted units of study, and we've done some in-house writing of units of study. We've also pulled some resources. We've been using a lot of the development modules from Engage New York, so we've been rolling that out to teachers by having curriculum overview days. I'll talk a little bit more about our Common Core online benchmarks when we get to SBAC preparation, but I think that's been a really important piece that we've done this year. The site-based PD, the coaches have been doing demonstration lessons. They've also been working with grade level teams to help with planning support. We've begun a series of after-school workshops. We call them Technology Tuesdays and Curriculum Thursdays, where teachers can sign up and come and get paid professional development on workshop topics that they think meet their needs. And we've also been working on SIOP as a strategy for our ELD teachers as we've been moving forward. Our curriculum materials, I'm going to talk a little bit about our curriculum materials for English Language Arts, because one of the other things that we've been really trying to concentrate on is how do we this year get materials in teachers' hands for them to try on, give us bunches of feedback, so we have surveys going out, we have the coaches out at sites trying to gather what's working, what's not working, so that we can make some really well-informed decisions about what we're going to use as curriculum for next year. So this slide talks about the materials list that we've been working on this year. In language arts, we have our ELA leads piloting the new Lucy Calkins writing units of study. So they're right now teaching those, and they're going to come back and give us feedback and also help us figure out how we're going to roll that out to everyone else next year. Ready Common Core is a book that we've been using in our elementary schools for K to 5 that has Common Core lessons in it, so teachers can get the feel of what a Common Core lesson would be. In our middle schools, we have Springboard, which is in our honors classes. So we've been doing training and giving teachers those materials as well. I already spoke about our Common Core units of study. And in our secondary schools, we are trying on Odell units of study. They're based on the 4 core proficiencies of Common Core, and they're from New York, Engage New York as well. And in grades 7 and 8, we're trying on the ERWC modules, and they were trained here at LACO just in January, so they're just piloting that work. And Al will talk about the math pieces when we get there. And we've also been trying to get resources into our science and social studies teachers' hands to be able to do close reading. They really have been relying on the textbook, so we want to give them resources, and we have to do actually more of that, giving them those texts that they can use to meet those literacy standards of the Common Core. So in our elementary schools, every teacher's trying on 3 units this year. We staggered them so they weren't feeling like it was Common Core all the way. They could sort of take a breather, learn about the new unit that was coming and plan for it. We've also been, have bought the Common Core Curriculum Maps book, so each teacher has that. And I also already talked about the Lucy Calkins writing kits and the Ready Common Core books. In secondary, we also have in-house units of study and the Curriculum Maps book and the 4 short units. You can see them listed there. Those are the 4 core proficiencies that each teacher is trying on in secondary school. So those are the materials for ELA and social studies and science that we've given them so far this year.
Great, thank you. Al, many of our schools and districts are making important decisions about Common Core state standards for mathematics. Can you share with our audience the district's plan for mathematics?
You know, one of the things that's very important as we move into Common Core mathematics for all of our kids is that we have a solid bridge program this year in which teachers try on units. And as Lila and Shannon have both talked about, not taking on too much, but making sure that our teachers are able to teach Common Core units and do it comfortably. Again, as Lila had talked about, we implemented a strategy in which we were going to use Launch, Explore, Summarize as an instructional focus for our teachers, and really focusing on just 2 mathematical practices, Mathematical Practice 1 and Mathematical Practice 3. The instructional model that we used this year with our Math Common Core leads was to teach 3 lessons that match each of the units of study and use the Launch, Explore, Summarize process to incorporate those elements of Math 1 and 3. Teachers, after receiving stat development, would teach at least 2 lessons that match each of the unit of studies and use Launch, Explore, Summarize. And Shannon talked a little bit about our module of curriculum for those teachers. At the elementary area, we looked at Common Core bridge materials this year as our Ready Common Core books. And again, teachers would choose lessons to supplement their units of study based on the standards that were being addressed. And the books could also be used during small group instruction to provide extra instruction based on student needs. The other material that we used at the elementary level was our Engage New York modules. And the Engage New York modules were used by our math leads and other interested teachers who were piloting those modules, focusing on those key Common Core strategies. At the secondary level, our Common Core bridge material this year was really the exploration of core math. And the exploration of core math materials was used in grades 6 through Algebra 2. In our Math 6 honors and Math 8, and this year we incorporated Common Core Math 8 for all of our 8th graders. They used the exploration of core math as their primary text for instruction during the year. The Math 6, 7th, Algebra, Geometry, and Algebra 2 teachers would choose lesson or text to supplement their units of study based on standards that were being addressed. Okay? As one of the key things that as we move to a full sequence of Common Core math is decide on our sequence. And so the slide that you see, I know that slide is difficult to read, but it is there in the resource materials. That we needed to decide two things. One was our course sequence and whether we were going to go to an integrated or traditional math sequence. And so as a district in discussion and looking at the needs of our students and looking at that, we wanted all high school students to develop really an integrated understanding of the relationship of algebra, geometry, and data analysis. And that each content strand would be supported, the concept skills and problem solving and reasoning of all the other strands. We chose as a district to go with the integrated pathway. The other thing that we needed to discuss or decide was where we were going to accelerate students. It's not the old acceleration points as we used to think. With the CST or the state standards, students could actually skip standards in order to accelerate. That is not true with Common Core math. And so we looked at two acceleration points for our students. One at the middle school level, okay, and as you see by the chart, we have a Common Core acceleration starting in 7th grade of Math 7 and 8, and then leading into 8th grade with Math 8 and an beginning of integrated Math 1. And the other acceleration point was at 9th grade. That students who were ready to accelerate, but until they got to high school, would have the opportunity to do that. So that was our math sequence in our choice for that math sequence, allowing all of our students to be able to complete 12th grade with AP Calculus, AP Stats, and really focusing on A through G pathway for all of our math sequences. Okay. The next thing we really looked at was our math adoption process. And with our math adoption process, you'll see by this first slide, this is what we have completed. So in looking at math adoption, first of all, we provided bridge materials and got feedback from teachers on the use of those bridge materials so that teachers had a true understanding of what Common Core lessons and what Common Core instruction in a textbook would look like. The other is that we organized pilots of Common Core curriculum with the Engage New York and the expressions of core math at our elementary K-5 and K-8s. Then we developed a rubric to analyze what we were looking for as far as textbook materials. The next slide talks about what we are doing this point and into the future. So again, we reviewed available math materials that narrowed the options to 2 or 3 choices. And as we looked at those choices, a lot of textbook authors haven't caught up yet, okay, with some of those materials. So as we looked at some of the materials were still in draft forms. But we were able to really review those math materials and looked at our rubric in order to determine whether or not those math materials would be appropriate for our students. In March, at the end of this month, okay, we are providing access to all of our teachers to come and review those materials and to give us feedback on their materials. And the chart, the slide shows the times that we are doing that. And our PDA is our professional development center at our district. Gather feedback in late April and choose the Common Core math materials that we're going to use in September. And then, of course, ordering the materials and having it ready to go by the time school opens up. Okay?
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, before we leave this portion, as both Lila and Shannon indicated, one of the district's hallmarks in their journey for implementation of Common Core is lesson study. Can you tell our audience how the district has structured this strategy and what have been the results, and maybe a personal experience from that?
Yes. Well, you know, lesson study was something that was very unfamiliar to me when I first started in our district, and it is true. It is a true professional learning community model that and it provides really an opportunity to create high quality instructional practices for our teachers. The structure of lesson study was that teams of teachers, teams of administrators, both at the site and at the district, would involve and delve into a lesson study and plan lessons and develop those lessons, decide on the data they were going to collect, teach the lesson, and then to debrief. And I'll give you the personal experience that I had. The team that I am on is the group of our 4 high school principals, and so 4 high school principal and myself. And so our first lesson study this year was focused around close reading. And I'm a former math and business teacher, and so close reading and reading strategies, of course, are foreign to me. Except the fact that of all of the stat development that we've done and I participated in within our district. So the principals and I gathered around and we developed the lesson. The lesson that we had was primarily a scripted lesson, but we were able to discuss it, provide some feedback in how we would adjust it, and then we got the opportunity to pick who would teach the lesson. Well, that was me, and so I was able to. And of course, I was very nervous to start with because my last time in a full-time classroom was 1991, and so and that was, as we well know, that was way before standards, and so but with the work of discussing the lesson, preparing the lesson, and I felt very confident that I was ready to teach the lesson and was able to do that. And so I taught a lesson to an environmental science classroom, okay, at the high school level. It was primarily 9th graders at one of our high schools. But the lesson was not science. The lesson was a close reading activity around a science topic. And so the experience that I had and all of the experience of discussing and talking about instruction with these high school principals was so valuable. I'm sold, and so I would encourage. It truly improved, incorporated, and did things for me to really develop a lesson collaboratively with others, and it was great conversation around that lesson.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yes.
Thank you. Shannon, please share with us the district's Smarter Balanced preparation. And I also understand from one of your previous comments that you're developing Common Core report cards. We're very interested in hearing about this initiative.
Well, I'd be glad to share it with you. So one of the things that we were working on this year, I call it sort of our course correction, because what I'm going to talk about now, our benchmarks, was not something we had in the works when we thought about our plan for this year. So the other hat that I wear in the district is I am in charge of assessment, so we've been furiously getting ready for our SBAC field test. But I think the thing that's missing, and it is missing, is we have a data gap. We used to have CST results, we used to have benchmark exams where teachers could analyze and see how their students are doing. Yes, the students are going to take the field test, but as I've stated to the teachers that I've been doing PD with, is the students type in their answers and they just go into a cloud somewhere and we never get to see them and we're not going to get results. So we had to think of a way to make sure that we knew what students could do and couldn't do with the new types of questions that SBAC is going to be facing for our kids. So what we did is I downloaded every Smarter Balanced Release question that I could find, and we sat with our Common Core curriculum teams in math and language arts, and the teachers on that team chose questions. So they took the big packet and they chose questions, and so they came up with about 10 to 15 questions, SBAC questions, that we were able to put into our data management system. We use EDIMS, and they have an online testing platform. So after that, all the kids went into the computer lab and they took this short benchmark test. And it was grades 2 to 10. We decided to start with second grade because those are going to be our third graders next year coming in and trying. And we stopped at 10th grade because our 11th graders they have a lot of tests coming up with EAP and also the Smarter Balanced Field Test. So once that was finished, we have started bringing in teachers. We just finished our last round of ELA and we're about to start math next week. And I think that these days have probably been the most powerful PD we've done around Common Core so far, because we've brought in all teachers in these grades. They sit in their grade level teams and the day takes on 3 parts. So the first part is what we call scoring calibration. And the teachers work together and they actually take those constructed response questions and they answer them themselves. They actually have to write out their own answers, and then they look at the rubric and they talk about what are the elements that we would expect to see in a top scoring response. And once they finish that, we move on to the second parts of the day where the teachers actually log in to our data management system and they score their students. The conversations that the teachers are having about what do you think this student's response should get, and trying to figure out how kids are doing. And then the eye-opening part is, wow. One of the things that has been coming up over and over again is this idea about evidence. Because the teachers say, well, we've been telling them to use evidence, and they can say it, but in conversation in the classroom, but when you put them in front of a computer independently, having to type it out, the vast majority of kids didn't do it. And so that was a huge eye-opener for us and our teachers. So that is something we're moving forward to make sure that we have proper professional development to help our kids get to that place. And then the third part of the day is really planning time. That's something teachers want and they need, and we're instituting a lot of curriculum. So we have been giving them the afternoons to do team planning, and a lot has been accomplished in those, and the teachers really appreciate that time. We've also been working on our Common Core report card, as you mentioned, and our data action team is one of our district teams, and that has administrators and teachers from all levels. And so what we decided to do was, there are lots of Common Core report cards all over this nation because everybody's doing Common Core, which is one good thing. So we just found as many as we could. We laid them all out on the table as a team, and we took a piece of chart paper and we started cutting out things that we liked. And we actually made a mock-up of a report card, and we put it together, and we're at the place now where we're ready to send it out to teachers for feedback. So that's our next step. One thing we did add to our report cards that is new this year, they're called GLOWs. Instead of having a traditional citizenship grade, we decided to think about general learner outcomes. And there's 2 big reasons for that. One is we're developing a graduate profile as a district, and we wanted to make sure that the things that were in our graduate profile matched some of the things that we are looking for and expecting out of our elementary school students. We know that a graduate profile doesn't start in 9th grade, it starts when they enter our system. And so we want to make sure that we are also assessing for those things in the elementary school classroom. So 2 states, Hawaii and North Carolina, have GLOWs as sort of their mantra for their state. And so we've decided to adapt them for our district report card. And so they talk a lot about the 21st century skills like technology readiness, making sure that our kids are complex thinkers, more than just being on task and doing all your work. It's really about the thinking work and that our students need to do to make sure that they meet Common Core and our graduate profile. So that's where we are right now with the report card.
Great. Lila, one of the big questions we often receive is how are districts preparing for the Smarter Balance Field Test as far as access to technology, tools, and training? We know that we're in the midst of the Smarter Balance Test of the Test. How did Norwalk-Lamourada prepare?
Well, this is an area where we've done a lot of work, and not alone. Two members of my team, my Director of Technology, Tim Schofield, and Ernesto Centeno, my Instructional Technology Specialist, have really done some pioneering work in this area. As you can see, everything we do is with a team. I have an amazing Ed Services team to accomplish this work. So for SBAC, I'm very proud to say that we now have 6,203 compliant SBAC machines to service our almost 20,000 students. Last year we purchased 490 new Mac and PC computers that were for teacher workstations, staff workstations, and some labs that we purchased for our high schools. We also upgraded all the labs at the district to have the most current browsers and Adobe Acrobat and different software that we use. And we built some new labs in the middle school as well as our high school. This year we purchased 1,640 iPads, and those are in carts that are being deployed to the schools, and we're also building 11 more labs. In addition to that, we've been purchasing some servers to help with managing some of that data at the site so we don't have a lag time when students are accessing the internet. The way we came up with the number of computers or devices that we needed was we used the SBAC Technology Readiness Calculator. And as you can see, you enter a number of computers that you have in there and the number of students, and it comes up with a ratio. When we figured out our ratio initially, we were looking at 1 to 3 or 1 to 4 devices per student. But in secondary, we made the mistake of counting the labs that are currently available. In reality, those labs are being used all the time for students and for classes. And so when we had our principals develop schedules, they informed us that it was not physically possible because they would have to find some place for all those other students to go. So that was something that we've done. This is prototypes of some schedules that we've developed. But we realized we really had to revise our ratio. And I know that a lot of people have already purchased their technology devices, but I really caution them not to assume that they can disrupt the educational program of students for 3 or more weeks while this testing is taking place. And so we feel really happy about that. Our principals were given an option to go back to their sites and talk about what kind of technology would fit the needs of their site. So they were given the option of either a Mac Mini lab or a PC lab or a Chromebook cart or an iPad cart. And because we have an iPad one-to-one initiative in our district at our middle schools, there was a lot of interest in continuing to use the iPads for creation as well as for the SBAC. So we have that. We are looking at possibly getting some Chromebook carts because now we realize we need to do some more with keyboarding. All of our training with our tech leads, which are part of our teams, has been around what is the SBAC, how do you prepare for it, how is it different, what are the technology skills that are needed, who's going to manage the hardware, what are some procedures for that, how to address the keyboarding issue that everybody's nervous about. I'm not saying we have all the answers, but I feel really proud of our team and of our tech leads that have been attending this training because they're helping to problem solve some of these things that everybody's dealing with.
Lila, you've described a very robust plan that your district is embarking on involving all stakeholders. What are your next steps?
Well, right now we're in the midst of working on our local control accountability plan. And that's really been an interesting process so far. We're collecting a lot of input from a lot of different stakeholders. And it's really great because it's affirming the fact that We are doing a lot of the right work with a lot of our students, and there are some things that we are looking to include and increase. We want to really make sure that our professional development plans are meeting the needs of our teachers. You know, we know that this is an iterative process. We can't do one size fits all. We think our plan is very robust, as you've said, and it really involves a lot of stakeholders and a great teamwork from the district level, from administrators, and from their implementation teams. But still, we know that some people adapt to change quickly and other people need more support. So we're always looking at ways that we can provide the maximum number of support opportunities. This summer we're looking at some additional training, maybe just 2 days of training. We're looking at more intensive training for our special ed teachers. Obviously we have a new math adoption, so we're really concerned about making sure the teachers get the access to those materials, hopefully in June, and have time to review them over the summer. We're also looking at how to implement our ELD standards with some new materials. And eventually we want to put together some multi-grade units of study for our combo classes, for our special ed classes. Even with class size reduction coming, there's just a lot of anxiety about how are teachers going to teach 2 grade levels at once. None of us, I think, have any of the answers, you know, that will meet everybody's needs, but we're certainly wanting to be very responsive to our teachers and make sure that we listen to their needs. Unfortunately, sometimes it feels like we just can't do enough fast enough. Building the plane while we're flying is what it feels like for all of us. And I think there's a sense of urgency that our administrators feel about wanting to be experts in this work, just like our teachers feel it. And we just have to be comfortable with the fact that it's a lot of change at once. And so managing the change, you know, we can design the what, we can communicate the how, but I think the patience is necessary. And so that's part of our next step. It's just being patient and allowing ourselves to take some risks and make some mistakes.
Thank you. How would you summarize your district's plan of action?
Well, I believe our district's plan of action is really based on a lot of buy-in. No one person can take credit. You can tell each of us have expertise in different areas, as do classroom teachers and administrators. But it's because we work together, because we have a vision that more heads make better work, more hands make lighter work. That's actually being incorporated even with the use of technology. We have a learning management system called Schoology, and teachers are just naturally sharing their lessons and posting those, using it with students. There's so much more happening that I didn't expect. I don't know if any of us expected, but I think that's the outgrowth of teams working together to make great things happen. And then being realistic with ourselves, as I was saying before, is something that I think is hard for us to get our hands around, because we want it all now. Everybody wants all of it to be perfect right away, and it's just going to take time.
Yeah, it is. As we come to the end of our webcast today, do you have any final thoughts or comments you'd like to share with our audience about lessons learned thus far in your Common Core journey? Shannon, do you want to start?
I think the thing that I've learned the most in this process is you have to be flexible and adaptable, and don't be afraid to course correct. There are things that we've done that we've abandoned because it wasn't the right work, and changed course, and it's been much better. So I think that if you just keep that open mind that we're going to make mistakes, but that you just course correct and try a new path, that you'll get to where you want to go.
Great, thank you. Al?
I think one of the things that's important to remember is to involve everyone in this process, particularly the principals that are going to be working with teachers and monitoring the instruction in the classroom. And they really do have to get their hands dirty in doing that. So participating in the staff development, participating in teaching lessons, and be open to the questions that are coming. I think it's so very important.
Thank you. Lila?
Well, They've said a lot of the things I would say in terms of making sure that we all collaborate and work together and give ourselves time to be successful. But I also want to say that I'm really proud that our technology department is working very much with us on the educational services side. In some districts it's separate.
Right.
We have an amazing team that really cares about what's happening in the classroom with students and teachers, and they've done everything they could to continue to support us and has really helped us because technology is another huge resource that we have for making our professional development work. And so we're looking more at videotaping some of our lessons and posting examples of great work. And all of that, I think, happens because we have wonderful support from our technology department.
Great. Well, thank you. We have the contact information for our guests today on the screen if you'd like to contact them for additional information. Also, the materials that they've referenced today will be on our website, lakeco.edu/Common Core. We want to thank the team from Norwalk-Lamoureux Unified School District for sharing their journey with us today. Thank you to Dr. Lila Bronson, Shannon Baker, and Dr. Al Clegg. We know how busy your schedules are, so we are doubly grateful for the time and expertise you were able to share with our district leaders. Certainly, the strategies that you have shared will help support all of us as we continue on this journey of Common Core implementation. And we want to thank all of you out there for joining us today. If you would like a copy of today's PowerPoint and other resources mentioned during today's show, please visit us again at lakeco.edu/Common Core. From our great teams at LACO Communications and Curriculum Instructional Services, I'm Yvonne Contreras, and we'll see you again in May for another District Leaders Collaborative webcast. Thank you.